Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our final segment of the day and of the week on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show this far. I'm really excited to switch to the defensive side of the ball to show you guys how exciting IDP leagues are and how exciting it's going to be come IDP draft time when you have this exciting crop of talent at certain positions on defense. But coming next, we have a guy who I really think a lot of people undervalue, mainly because he's on a defense that's getting to the precipice of being one of the best defenses in the league, but might not be quite there just yet, and that is Bradley Chubb. You look at Micah Parsons and TJ Watt, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, they're no doubters. I'll have them on my draft boards. They're going very high. Bradley Chubb, on the other hand, might not be considered that. And I still think that he's one of the premier linebackers in this league. But maybe there's some disconnect between him and, say, the injury bug that might cause concern for people. So let's jump right into why I think Bradley Chubb is undervalued and why he is. Why he shouldn't be, rather. 515 overall fantasy points for Bradley Chubb. 148.4 last year in his best year and his second in Miami. 30 solo tackles, 7 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, 73 overall tackles. And I really believe that Bradley Chubb is a guy who, perhaps because whether moving from Denver to Miami, whether the injuries he's had to weather throughout his career, something's missing between his connection with fantasy managers and his results on the field. Because when I look at Bradley Chubb's stats, they're certainly not, Micah Parsons or TJ Watt level stats, but they're certainly above average. And I think that on a Dolphins defense that this year might regress in the mean a little bit, they lost a little depth up front, I really think that Bradley Chubb is ready to stand out, and this could be his statement year. Especially now that he has a partner in Jalen Phillips on the weak side of things that had a breakout season before, unfortunately tearing his Achilles. And what I love about the Dolphins defense is that they're unafraid to recognize that the strength, the forte of their defense is these two linebackers in Chubb and Phillips. And they play their base 3-4. It's a high blitz rate, so you know that they're going to rush the pass, be very aggressive in how they do that. And now that they're building a good secondary, they can do that. And so the connection between Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips is perhaps the most important piece to look at when we talk about, the Dolphins as a whole. Because when you put that much power in the hand of these two linebackers, that really offers them a lot. Because when I look at Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips as a linebacker duo, I really like Jalen Phillips' length. I like his versatility. I like his size. And when I look at Bradley Chubb, I think of speed, power, aggressiveness, point of attack, just getting to the quarterback in any way possible. And that duo can certainly work. When I look at Micah Parsons, he's a guy who does it by himself. TJ Watt just got Patrick Queen, but that, like I said, that messes around with hierarchy. Right now, these two linebackers, Chubb and Phillips, might become the best linebacker tandem really quickly. And it shocks me that a lot of people might be overlooking them due to the fact that the Dolphins' defense, isn't as intriguing or pretty as the Cowboys and Steelers. But right now, in Bradley Chubb's career, this is the year, in my honest mind, where he just plays like an animal. And no matter where he goes in fantasy drafts, I promise you that by the end of the year, that fantasy drafting will look silly wherever he goes. The draft positioning will look silly. Now, in terms of caveats, with Bradley Chubb, I think that the caveat is, obviously Jalen Phillips could become even better than him. And I could definitely see that happen because Jalen Phillips, before that Achilles injury, was having a career year, finally stepping into that weak side linebacker role. But I really think that the Dolphins don't necessarily have the structure at every level of their defense that other teams have. They certainly are starting to get there, but in terms of structure, in terms of play style, it certainly seems as if they're just learning to work together. And that might be because of the injury bug. And that's another thing that's also a caveat here. The injury bug is kind of hindering how this defense developed because they're right there, in my humble opinion. They have the personnel, and they have the know-how, and they have the system. But A, the injury bug, and B, the fact that all these players, they didn't even get a chance to play with Jalen Ramsey, Chubb, and Phillips, really. And that might lead to them being kind of rocky to start the season. So the Dolphins' defense is really going to be one to keep an eye on, where as the season progresses, you're going to want to see more attack-minded players in Chubb and Phillips, especially in their front as well. And so, looking at how the Dolphins' defense responds to this idea of togetherness, this idea of playing as a full unit, is really going to matter when it comes to how they progress. Because right now, the Dolphins' defense is going to have a little bit of weight on them this year. Because who knows what the offense is going to play like. In a contract year for Tua, a lot of pressure is going to be on him. So they're going to be maybe in a similar situation to the Browns, where they're going to be the unit on their team that's going to have to step up. And they lost a lot of production, like I said. No more Wilkins, no more Van Ginkel, no more, players who really speak to the spirit of what they were trying to build. And so I'm looking at them too. I'm looking at Chubb and Phillips and saying, hey, this is what the defense is now, and you're going to have to lead it, because I see potential in what the Dolphins have. It's just that I'm not necessarily confident that Chubb and Phillips can, when the focus is all on them, really rise to the occasion without, having played a full season together with this team. And, when so much production has been lost. But Bradley Chubb, no matter what, has an opportunity here to make me look fantastic. And for fantasy managers everywhere to rejoice when I say that I told you so when he performs well. And that's all I have for the week and the day and in my IDP player profiles. But that will just about do it for the show. This was the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. Please like, follow, and subscribe to the show and the network. It is a huge support to all those involved. Also consider leaving a tip or donation at the link gsmc.cloud. Anything left there is greatly appreciated. I have been Chris Shepard. Thank you guys yet again for tuning in to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. We'll be back next week better than ever. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in.